Before this story locks you in, hit that subscribe button, smash like, and drop a comment because when the truth finally surfaces, you'll realize how close everyone came to getting it completely wrong. The highway was deserted except for the flashing lights. Red and blue reflections skidded across the rain-polished asphalt as officers stood frozen on the overpass. Staring down into the ravine below, steam rose from the brush where a car had left the road at full speed, torn through the guardrail, and vanished into the darkness. The engine ticked as it cooled, a hollow metallic sound echoing through the trees. At the bottom, half hidden by thorn and mud, lay the body. Detective Lucas Hale arrived minutes later, his coat already soaked through. He took in the scene without speaking. The vehicle, an older sedan, was crumpled against a tree, its driver's door strangely open. There were no skid marks. No sign of braking. The woman inside was seat-belted, positioned carefully, her hands folded in her lap as if someone had arranged them after the impact. "This isn't an accident," Hale said quietly. The victim's name came back before dawn: Naomi Pierce, 32, a data analyst. Recently divorced, no children, no criminal history. She'd worked late nights, kept to herself, and was last seen leaving her office garage just after midnight. By the end of the week, the case was closed. The official cause of death was ruled a loss of control due to weather conditions. No suspects. No charges, just another tragedy written off to timing and rain. But something about it stuck with Hale. Naomi's sister, Erin, refused to accept the conclusion. She stood at the press conference, gripping a photo of Naomi at a family barbecue. Sunlight caught in her hair. A smile that looked nothing like the still image from the ravine. Erin asked questions no one wanted to answer. Why was Naomi's phone never recovered? Why did the car's GPS stop recording 10 minutes before the crash? And why were there fingerprints on the outside of the driver's door that didn't belong to her? 3 years passed. The city forgot. The file gathered dust. But Hale didn't. He'd been transferred to cold cases after a department reshuffle, his desk buried beneath unsolved names and half-finished stories. On a quiet Thursday afternoon, while cataloging old evidence for disposal, he opened Naomi Pierce's file again. He wasn't looking for answers, he was just looking for closure. He found neither. The photos bothered him first. The angle of the car against the tree, the way the branches were broken, not snapped. The seatbelt bruising didn't quite match the force of the crash. It was subtle, the kind of inconsistency that disappears unless you stare long enough. Hale pulled the evidence log. Naomi's laptop had been returned to her family after a quick review. The report said no anomalies were found. No suspicious files, but there was a footnote at the bottom. Almost apologetic in its brevity: external storage device present, contents deemed irrelevant. Hale sat back in his chair. Irrelevant to what? He murmured. He drove to Erin Pierce's house that evening. She answered the door cautiously, grief still etched into her face, even after 3 years. When Hale explained why he was there, she didn't hesitate. She led him to a spare bedroom closet and pulled out a cardboard box labeled Naomi. Inside was the laptop, charger, notebooks, and taped to the underside of the laptop sleeve, a slim flash drive Erin said she'd never noticed before. Hale felt his pulse spike. They plugged it in. The files weren't dramatic, no videos, no recordings, just spreadsheets, emails, and calendars synced to location data. Naomi hadn't been working late for deadlines. She'd been tracking something. A pattern of transactions moving through shell companies, names repeated across departments that never interacted on paper. One name stood out: Daniel Corin, Senior Operations Director, well-liked, recently promoted. The kind of man whose face appeared in company newsletters smiling beside words like integrity and leadership. Hale cross-checked timelines. Naomi's activity spiked whenever Corin traveled. Her notes grew more urgent in the weeks before her death. Then he found the last entry. A text file created hours before the crash. It read, "If anything happens to me." It wasn't the road. Hale reopened the case officially the next morning. The department wasn't thrilled. The captain reminded him the case had been reviewed, approved, and archived. Hale simply reminded him that evidence had been overlooked. Reluctantly, the green light came through. And just like that, a case everyone thought was closed was about to be blown wide open. What did Naomi uncover that was worth killing for? The answers were hidden in plain sight. And now, Hale was finally asking the right questions. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to find out what happens next. He pulled traffic cam footage from Naomi's route home. Most of it was grainy, rain-streaked, and pretty much useless. But one camera, positioned near an overpass, caught something strange. Naomi's car didn't stop abruptly, it slowed down deliberately, and right behind her. Another vehicle was following, a dark SUV with no visible plates. Just seconds later, the footage cut out completely. Hale decided to pay Corin a visit, pretending it was just a routine follow-up. Corin was polite, cooperative, almost acting bored by the whole thing. He offered his sympathies, but insisted he barely knew Naomi. Just a passing hello in the hallway. He even claimed he was out of state the night she died. And honestly, the records backed him up. Plane tickets, hotel receipts, even witness statements. Logically, Hale should have dropped it right there. The alibi was solid. But something kept nagging at him. He went back and checked the metadata on Naomi's GPS logs one more time. The system didn't just fail 10 minutes before the crash. It had been manually disconnected. Someone had physically reached into the console and turned it off. Someone who knew that car. As Hale was getting a warrant ready to dig into deeper financial records, a call came in from evidence storage. The clerk's voice was tight. "Detective," he said, "you need to get down here." Now, when Hale arrived, the sealed evidence box from Naomi's case was sitting open on a table. Everything was there accounted for, except for one thing, the external storage device that was clearly listed in the original report. It was just gone. Taped to the inside lid of the now empty box was a sticky note, yellowed with age. On it was a message, written in careful, precise handwriting that Hale instantly recognized from Naomi's old files. It said, "You're still looking in the wrong place." Hale just stared at the note, the words hitting him like a physical blow. For 3 long years, the truth hadn't been buried deep in some conspiracy. It had been sitting there, waiting, right where no one had ever bothered to look. If you love a good mystery, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for watching. The note shouldn't have existed. Detective Lucas Hale held it between gloved fingers, the paper brittle with age. The handwriting was unmistakable. Naomi Pierce. The same precise, disciplined slant that had written, "If anything happens to me." It wasn't the road. The new note was tucked where only someone inside the system could have placed it. It read, "You're still looking in the wrong place. Evidence doesn't taunt you. People do." Hale sealed the evidence box, logged the discrepancy, but didn't tell a soul about the note. Not yet. Experience taught him that when a case starts pushing back, it means the wrong people are already watching. He returned to his desk and pulled out Daniel Corin's file again. On paper, the man's alibi was perfect. Every movement accounted for, every transaction clean, the kind of clean that takes a lot of effort to maintain. Hale decided to dig deeper. He requested Naomi's full work access logs, even the archive permissions that were no longer active. It took 2 days of wading through bureaucracy and one quiet favor from an IT supervisor who still trusted him. When the files finally landed on his desk, Hale worked straight through the night, fueled by coffee and a growing sense of unease. And then he found it. Naomi hadn't just been tracking fraud from the outside. She'd been granted temporary internal access. It was read-only, limited, but it was enough to see patterns others couldn't. The authorization came from a senior executive who had conveniently retired 6 months before Naomi's death. But the signature approving the access, it wasn't Corin's. It was a forgery. Hale leaned back in his chair, the office lights humming overhead, the pieces clicking into place. Someone had opened the door for Naomi, let her look around, and then realized too late that she understood exactly what she was seeing. They didn't just want her gone, they wanted her silenced. The car crash was never just an accident. The next morning, his phone rang. It was Erin Pierce, Naomi's sister. her voice shaking with fear. "Someone was here last night," she whispered. "Someone was in my house." The case wasn't just pushing back anymore. It was reaching out. And it was getting personal. Now, the question wasn't just who killed Naomi, but who was coming for her family next, and why. The game had changed. And Hale knew he was running out of time. Thanks for watching. If you're captivated by this mystery, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. What do you think the forged signature means? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time. When Hale got to Aaron's place, the scene was a mess. The back door was forced open, drawers yanked out, papers everywhere, but nothing valuable was gone. The laptop was sitting right there on the desk. The flash drive, the one he told Aaron to hide, was still safe. They weren't here to steal, Hale said, his eyes scanning the chaos. They were searching. Aaron looked terrified. Searching for what? She asked. For something they think Naomi left behind. Hale made sure Aaron was safe with a friend and got some patrol cars to swing by. But he knew that was a flimsy shield. Whoever did this was no amateur. They were careful. Almost arrogant in their confidence, they were getting bolder. This wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Later that afternoon, the captain called Hale into his office. The air was thick and comfortable. "I'm pulling you off the Pierce case," the captain said, staring at a spot on his desk. Anywhere but at Hale. Orders came from upstairs. Hale felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. "On what grounds?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. And specified procedural concerns. Hale knew that code. Someone with power had made a call. Someone who wanted the past to stay buried. He didn't argue. He just turned and walked out. It was time to go rogue. Using his own laptop, Hale dove into the same digital rabbit hole Naomi had disappeared into. He tracked public records, followed the breadcrumbs of shell corporations she had flagged. It was a tangled web of offshore accounts and phantom consulting firms, with money being laundered and funneled back into development projects linked directly to Corin's department. This wasn't just a simple case of fraud. This was a massive operation that depended on absolute silence. And Hale knew that kind of silence is bought with blood. He traced one of the shell companies to a warehouse on the edge of the city. Officially, it was just storage for old equipment. But the power records told a different story: spikes of usage at strange hours. No employees on record. Under the cover of darkness. Hale slipped inside. The place smelled of oil and stale dust. In a back corner, tucked behind a fake wall, he found it, a small, hidden office. Inside, there was a desk, a chair, and a locked filing cabinet. He picked the lock. It was filled with spreadsheets, printed out and identical to the files on Naomi's flash drive. But these were annotated, updated. Someone had picked up her work right after she died. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the loading bay. Hale snapped his flashlight off, pressing himself into the shadows. Two voices drifted in, calm and casual. The other replied, "She didn't. She made access." There was a short pause. And the detective, the first voice, asked. The silence stretched on, heavier this time. "He's asking questions." Another beat of silence. "Then we handle it."
Timon moved deeper into the warehouse. Hale slipped on, his hair hammering. This was the just a single bad actor. It was an apple, and Naomi had stumbled trigger into its story. The next day, he sent an anonymous tip to the state prosecutor, attaching the financial links the unsolved. It was a healthy gamble. That evening, a text from an unknown number stopped the game. He ignored it and reopened Naomi's calendar. One entry stood out, marked with a single initial, and where the location was a derelict dinner. Hal drove there down and found it a burned, old phone hidden in the sedan. I pulled it on. A single draft message appeared. If you don't walk out, it means silly. Telephone rang. Detective Haley, he answered it. A woman as low voice replied, "You recall certain I never forgot."
The woman's voice echoed in Hale's head as he drove through the city, streetlights streaking across his windshield like fading signals. I was in the car with Naomi the night she died. It wasn't a confession. It was a challenge. He had to know more. Hale decided to trace the call, cashing in favors and stretching old trusts until a name finally surfaced: Margot Klein. She was a former compliance officer, quietly fired 2 years ago after raising what they called process concerns. Interestingly, that was the same month Naomi Pierce started digging into Daniel Corrin's department. Coincidence? Hale didn't think so. The trail went cold. Margot had vanished from all public records shortly after Naomi's death. But Hale was persistent. He found her 3 hours north, in a small coastal town, living under a rented name and working nights at a quiet marina office. When she saw him approach, she didn't run. She didn't even seem surprised. She just let out a long sigh, the kind of sigh from someone who's been waiting for a ghost to finally appear. I told her not to meet him alone, Margot said. They were sitting in the empty office, the sound of waves breaking outside like distant, rhythmic applause. She thought evidence was enough. She actually believed that the truth protected people. Who did she meet? Hale asked. His voice low. Margot's jaw tightened. Daniel Corrin. He called her himself. Said he wanted to explain everything. The pieces of the puzzle locked into place with a sickening clarity. Margot described the drive up to the overlook. Naomi was tense but so determined, her files saved to multiple locations. Absolutely convinced that once Corrin saw how exposed he was, he'd have no choice but to negotiate. They parked. Corrin arrived alone, appearing calm, even apologetic. He told her she was right. Margot's voice trembled slightly. He said he'd underestimated her. Then he asked her to hand over everything she had, so he could protect her from the fallout. Of course. Naomi refused, and that refusal sealed her fate. What happened next changed everything. If you want to find out the rest of the story and see how Hale unravels this conspiracy, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming. Thanks for watching.
Margot never saw the exact moment it all went wrong. She was in the chat dengan Humin, watching the silhouettes figure through the rain-streaked windshield. Voices got louder. As again, sharp movement. Then she saw Corrin step back, hands raised. Calling for help that had no would never arrive in Timur. Naomi found uncle, poor Charles. Distance she runs wild as Corrin fled their skin. Margot, 3 feet, erased herself from the picture. Convinced no one would believe she was just a bystander. She was going to go public the next morning. Margot whispered, tears streaming down her face. She never made it yet. The trial was a brutal 6 weeks. But the prosecution had only last piece of evidence. A voice memo from Naomi's phone, recorded just minutes before her death. The courtroom went silent as her calm voice filled the air. If you were hearing this, she's right. It meant she was triggered, and it meant she chose himself. Then came Margot, her testimony offering. To forget authorizations. Try to trace back to Corrin's ovation, the shell companies. Try to move under the scrutiny of forensic advontante. And that only sentence Naomi had written. The one everyone called paranoia for years. It became the very heart of the case. The jury took just for horror. Guilty, without counter. Corrin showed nothing. He just stared at the floor. That cocky confidence finally gone. Had to rule the system that it will protect him. That evidence could stay buried. He was wrong, would she be?